Magnet, which is a not-for-profit initiative in the province of Ontario that's led by the Ontario Chambers of Commerce and Ryerson University, but with lots of other community partners, post-secondary partners that are involved. So it's really a collaborative across the province initiative, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but we're excited as well that it's already growing outside of the province of Ontario. So what I'm going to do today is we'll go through a PowerPoint presentation, and we'll also go through some of the technology. So my name, again, is Mark Patterson. I am the Director of Research Partnerships at Ryerson University, and I'm also the Executive Director responsible for this initiative. And we'll be going through, like I said, a PowerPoint this morning, as well as some of the technology, and explaining how it's useful not only for community organizations and members, but also to employers. And I noticed that we have a mix of different organizations, some HR professionals on the line today, as well as some community partners that are interested in joining. So we'll try and speak to both sides. We'll be about half an hour to 40 minutes going through kind of an overview and the technology, and then we'll be happy to take any questions. Unfortunately, we've found that with the technology, we are getting a lot of echo and background noise. So I have put everybody on mute. We would like to have be able to have a conversation, but to reduce the background noise and so on and the echo, we've put everybody on mute for now. If you have questions while I'm going through the PowerPoint, please feel free to type them in the chat box, which you'll have in the right side on your control panel at the bottom. So please feel free to type any questions that you may have in there. And at the Q&A session at the end, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you've put in and any future questions that you may have. And of course, we're available post webinar as well to answer any questions that you may have that are specific to your organization. So we'll get started. First of all, Magnet again is, it started out with a technology that was developed in our incubator, the Digital Media Zone at Ryerson University, that we saw a lot of potential in new and innovative ways to connect people to opportunities. And we use the word opportunities because it's about much more than just employment. We are actually using this tool to connect people to all kinds of opportunities that they may find valuable and that could advance their career or their professional development. So that's why we use the word opportunities. We're certainly focused heavily on jobs and connecting people to career opportunities, but it is valuable for events and scholarships and all kinds of other opportunities that people, for example, in a college or university might be interested in, but also other types of opportunities that may be relevant to connect to your constituents in your community group. So how do we work? First, we start with any community organization that serves individual members. And we support that organization, inviting its individual members to participate in the initiative. Individuals within a community, so it could again be a college, a university, a professional association, a social service agency, or community support agency, can invite their individual members to build a profile on the system. So individuals build a profile. We're all used to profiles like Facebook or LinkedIn. There's some distinct differences between these profiles. One, the profiles are private, so they're anonymous profiles. And the taxonomy and the detail of the information that we collect, and you'll see this as we go through the actual technology, is very detailed and therefore allows us to do very accurate matching. So we'll explain that as we go through. The next side of the system is we have a portal where employers can come in or other opportunity holders can come in, join the network, and proactively seek out people that match the opportunities that they have and target them. So it's a very different model than posting a job on a job board. You can actually identify people that have the skills and then engage them in proactive ways with all kinds of digital media and other engaging tools to have them look at your opportunity and apply. And you know that you're going to a qualified pool. So what we like to say is we can make opportunities, jobs and opportunities chase or match to people. And if you think about that, so if we can reduce the number of unqualified applicants, we make it easier for especially small and medium-sized businesses to connect to the talent that will help them or to connect to opportunities, but we also provide valuable opportunities to individuals in a targeted way. So one of our challenges that we have in any large community, but for example at Ryerson University, is having people pay attention to the opportunities. We're all overwhelmed with so much information right now, and trying to sort out what's relevant. And to us, with this system, we can actually make sure people are receiving opportunities that they'll value and that they pay attention. So it's really helping us with engaging the right people on the right opportunities. And we'll talk to some of those specific points, I think, that are valuable to employers and to communities as we go through the presentation. What's even more exciting is that we actually are able to track and analyze what's happening in real time. So we have community labor market information. So for any individual organization, like a university or a professional association, we can actually provide an analytics tool, and I will show you this a little bit later, that can actually enable the organization to see what's happening with supply and demand in its community. And this is important, for example, for Ryerson, because that really gives us an indication. When you can understand supply and demand and what's happening, and analyze if there are any gaps, as an example, that's really what we're interested in, identifying curriculum and making sure our curriculum is relevant and producing the skills that are required for the needs of the employers that are hiring our students. In a region or city, it could be economic development. So what's the labor pool, and what's the demand, and what kinds of employers should we be trying to attract to our region, and all kinds of opportunities like that. So we will discuss how we can do this for any individual organization, but also how we are able to do it in aggregate for clusters of organizations. We will talk about two different analytics tools that we have in the system. So one is an activity tracking and what's happening in the system. So as far as activities, and that's absolutely free. And I would just take a moment to mention at this time, for community partners, this is absolutely free. We will provide the technology for free and support for free for you to engage and communicate with your community organization. And the activity dashboard is free. We do, however, have a small charge, which we'd be happy to talk to offline, depending on your organization, for the what we call the Insight and Labor Market Analytics tool that I would be showing later on in the presentation as well. So this is the only thing that we charge for, is the Insight and Labor Market Analytics, but the rest of the tool and the network support and the custom landing pages and the technology will provide for free to any not-for-profit in the province of Ontario. And in addition to providing it for free, we will actually as well provide a revenue stream for those organizations. So we will get into a little bit more how employers engage. Employers, I'll just mention quickly, can post jobs absolutely for free. So just like they may already at any institution in Ontario, post their jobs for free and receive applicants for free. That service is absolutely free, but we also have a proactive targeted outreach program where there is a small fee to connect to candidates that we've proactively reached out to, almost like a recruiter. So in that case, there is a small fee, which employers are very excited about, because they're getting targeted, high quality candidates and connecting to them very cost effectively. And what's happening is we're actually sharing that revenue stream with our not-for-profit organizations that are bringing the supply to Magnet and to this growing network. So what's exciting is that in any region, we're able to give each individual organization this type of analytics and insight into what's happening for their community organization. And we're also able to do it in aggregate for a municipality, for a city, and even for the province. So at other levels of aggregation, the data becomes extremely useful for public policy, for all kinds of things, as far as making our labor market in Ontario more effective and more efficient, which I think is a goal that all of us would aspire to. So we have 24 colleges and universities in the province of Ontario that are partners. We're working with an additional 12 in discussions to onboard an additional 12. as well. And we have a lot of institutions that are starting to join from outside of the province of Ontario as well. We've onboarded around 70 partner organizations, and we can talk about a few of those. We have the Ontario Chambers of Commerce representing across the province of Ontario. We're currently at 35,000 individual profiles in the system, primarily in the post-secondary sector, but this is growing daily and very quickly. So we're really excited about where this will be in a few short months. And we do recognize that for employers, you may not find all of your talent needs may not all be met in the system right now, but we are looking for partnerships with employers that understand the vision and what we're doing, and where this could get to in a few months. And we're partnering with a lot of large national and international employers, as well as a lot of the SME community as well. We're funded by the Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities, the province of Ontario. We have large employment groups like ITAC, ICTC, ORMA, ITAC, the Chambers of Commerce as well, and others that we're in discussions with. We have the National Association of Career Colleges, the National Association of Universities, and the National Association of Colleges also participating and helping us. And we are partnered as well with the Conference Board of Canada, who is very interested on this issue around the skills gap or perceived skills gap, and employers not being able to find the right talent, and people not being able to find employment. So we're really looking to address that issue at a macro level. So here, I won't spend a lot of time on these slides with some of the college and university partners, so big universities like Western University of Toronto and others. And like I said, we're talking to a lot of other universities right now. We have some universities already. So for example, you'll see Dalhousie on here. They are obviously in Nova Scotia, but a lot of their students, almost 50% of their students, are from Ontario and end up coming back to Ontario to work. So we're helping support that. And lots of other colleges. We have many community organizations that are joining. This is just a few of them, and other economic and workforce development training organizations and support groups like TRIAC, which is the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council. We're working with different groups in the Aboriginal community, and very diverse groups across the province of Ontario that are all passionate about helping people connect to employment. Here as well, World Education Service, we're building a pre-arrival cluster of candidates. So working with people who are applying to come to Canada on work visas or in skilled immigrant programs, and building a cluster where we'll be able to connect employers to those individuals, but also understand the pipeline of talent that's coming to the country as well. So lots of partners. You can see here some of the professional associations, and we have a large initiative helping connect all of our entrepreneurial hubs in the province as well. So our advisory council, you can see this online as well, but a lot of people from very diverse organizations that are very passionate about helping this initiative grow in the province of Ontario. So we're very thankful for their support. And so I'm going to jump in and show you right now how the actual technology works. So I just want to take a brief moment, and we'll go to our website. So again, our website is www.magnet.today. And if you go to this website, if you are a community organization or agency and you would like to partner with us, you can come to the Get Involved tab and click on Partner with Us. And this will bring you to this page where you'll see a form, and you can sign up as a member or as a member and a supply partner. The difference is a member typically is an organization that doesn't directly serve individuals, where a supply partner is an organization that actually serves individual members or has a community of individuals that they serve. And that is the group where we will provide a sustainability commission. So if you click on apply to become a member and supply partner, what happens, you fill out the form, you can read the membership terms and the supply partner terms. If you're a member and supply partner, you have to accept both. And once you submit this form, having accepted those terms, you'll be placed in our onboarding process, and Susie Mangar would, from our team at Magnet, will be following up with you. If you're an employer, you can simply go to Join Today and click on the employer link, and that will take you to a sign up process where you'll sign up as an employer, get an employer account, and be able to access the system as an employer. So we're going to just go to, I'll show you what typically happens if you're a community organization. So let's just pick a group, let's say, for example, Goodwill. What we would do is actually provide any community organization that signs up with us. We will provide a co-branded landing page. So you can see here that there is a landing page where it has Goodwill's logo, and this would be the page that Goodwill would ask the individuals that it's working with across the province of Ontario to sign up. So they would sign up through this section here. And what I'm going to do is just jump over to our demo login, where I can log in and show you an actual demo of the system, what it will look like for individuals and communities that sign up. I'm just going to take a second to sign in here. And I'm just going to reset it, so we are right back to what it would look like for an individual when they first sign into the system. So they would be welcomed and greeted with a short potential video that if they want to watch it, and then we know that they want to import a resume or import their LinkedIn profile so that they can get a quick start on building our profile in this system. So I'm going to show you, just for the sake of time, I'll only show you the one side. We'll show how it works for a resume. So I'm just going to search on my computer for a sample resume. It can be any PDF or Word document, and we'll just upload that. And you can see that in that amount of time, it's uploaded the resume, and it's actually placed it into the taxonomy of our profile. And what's important about this from a community organization perspective is that, for example, I used to be responsible for over 10,000 students. I was the career director for our business school at Ryerson. I used to be responsible for over 10,000 students, but really didn't have much more information about them other than the year and the program that they were studying. And we would often have employers calling saying, Mark, can you tell us how many fourth-year accounting students you have that speak Mandarin? We're doing global recruiting, and we'd like to hire people with specific language skills out of Canadian universities. We're based, our head office is in Canada, but we're expanding into China rapidly. We have a lot of initiatives, and we'd like people with those language skills. And we never used to be able to connect them. So the only option for us was to do a general information session, an e-blast, or put a posting on our job boards. With this, we're actually able to, now we have the information, and we're able to identify individuals that would be relevant to connect directly with those employers. So it's a very different model. We'll talk a little bit more about the advantages going through. And in aggregate, I actually understand the community that I'm responsible for and can be strategic and can create new tactics for deeper engagement and more meaningful engagement with opportunities. So, but the first step to get this process started is to have individuals affiliated with organizations build these profiles. So you can see we've uploaded the resume, but it says 3 more required fields. So I want to show you what the difference is with this. So we uploaded the resume. What's it going to ask for that wasn't on the resume? So what we do is we look for the red fields. You can see here it says work eligibility. So one of the things we like to collect is, for example, work eligibility to understand about our community where somebody may be eligible to work. As I just mentioned, the example of language skills, we can actually have people identify their language skills, and we prompt them to let them know that it's languages that they have a working level of proficiency in, and there's all kinds of help text here that people will be using. So we then save that, and you can notice it's gone down to 2 required fields. The person would then go to the education section. You can see that from the resume, it pulled and created an education record. It identified automatically that it was a degree, but it would have picked up any of the other kinds of academic credentials. It picked up that it was an undergrad Bachelor of Engineering, but it didn't pick up the focus area. So this person, for example, was maybe an aerospace engineer, or maybe also studied electrical engineering. And so we can just start typing and that will come up. Just to point out, we have all very expansive taxonomies across all different areas of study. So if, for example, the person was in history, they'd be able to define, for example, music history and culture, law history, religion history, art history, and so on. So very expansive taxonomies, and the system is actually learning organically all the time. So the taxonomies are growing based on things that are also entered. So we've added in engineering as our focus area during the studies in this degree program. What our current status is, letter grade, if is optional but recommended. And then they can actually attach any kind of special project. So it could be a capstone project. And I would mention that any kind of digital media can actually be added to the profile. So it could be YouTube videos, Vine videos, photos. It could be maybe if you happen to be a photographer, you could put your portfolio on the system as well. So it's a full portfolio system. You'll notice now that we've saved that. So we finished the education section and it says one more record required or one more required field. So it picked up the work experience record and it picked up the title and the description of what the responsibilities were in that job. But then we start to try and contextualize it. And this is where you'll see the value and the difference of the system. So what happens is we ask, was it a skilled trade or service, or was it a function within an organization? So if it was a skilled trade or service, we have every kind of skilled trade that a person could be participating in, and they can designate potentially multiple areas. If you worked in a larger organization and you worked within a certain function, let's say human resources, we can pick human resources. So I worked in that functional area. And then I was maybe responsible for recruiting, talent management, training, and orientation. So that was what I focused on when I was in this role. And then it can ask your skills. So you'll see what we're doing is we know the company, we know the functional area or skilled trade, then we know the focus areas, and now we're actioning the specific skills. So maybe this particular person was an expert in employment law compliance, human rights discrimination law compliance, human resource information systems. Maybe they feel they have a skill that they're not able to find in their taxonomy, so they can just add it. And like I said before, the system starts to learn, and we can map it back and grow the taxonomies, or map it back to something that already exists and improve how that's represented so it becomes clearer that it's in the taxonomy. We can then ask questions to further contextualize the job. So was it contract, part-time, full-time, co-op, or internship? How was it compensated? What was the budget responsibility, if any? So maybe not applicable. Direct reports, if any, and you'd be surprised, even a lot of first and second year university students may have worked in a job where they had some management responsibility in a retail store or at a camp or in some other role. So this is very relevant across all levels. Revenue responsibility, if any, period of employment. And then we also contextualize the employer. So what was the employer type? So was it a public, private, not-for-profit, or public sector? The number of employees, and this can contextualize, for example, the number of employees can contextualize the title and other things in the this particular record. And then we asked the employer's industry. So the resume that I actually uploaded was for an engineer. I used an HR kind of example, but I'll flip back now to engineering and just show you the different how it's built and structured for all different areas. So the resume that I uploaded was actually an engineer who was working in the engineering services industry, and they were actually doing design work for the automotive sector. And so they can actually designate that as well. So employer industry, and then the market served. So you could have a business development or salesperson that's worked in financial services or serving financial services. And that could be a unique skill set that's predictive of success. versus a business development person that's working serving the say the telecom sector. So being able to identify this on the employer side is really valuable if you want to do really targeted fast recruiting. So you'll notice that now the profile completion piece is gone. So what that means is that this profile is highly searchable. The individual could attach all kinds of additional digital media and continue to build out the profile. But at this stage, they have a highly searchable profile. They can look. We do have a job board in the system, but we like to point out that while we have that functionality, the real purpose of this system is to make opportunities chase individuals. So there's a communication platform and channel where individuals can actually direct the communications to their channel of choice. So what we know is very important is that students in particular want to receive opportunities that are targeted at them, but they want to receive it in their social stream or the communication or the email of choice. And oftentimes, right now in institutions, we're asking them to come to a job board, sit down and take time, come to a job board, or we're communicating to them through their institutional emails. And we're finding that we're not getting the level of engagement that we'd like, or certainly not able to reach targeted groups that would be a fit for opportunities. So with this, they can set the communication channel of choice. We're integrating into the different social media platforms. We don't expect people to live on Magnet. We expect them to live on Facebook or Twitter or some of the other social channels that they may be using. So what I've showed you now, just to recap quickly, we've actually looked at the individual side. So what I'm going to do now is jump to what it would look like for an employer using the system and show you how that works. So we're going to jump over, and I'll just jump over here and assume that we've logged into an employer account as an employer, and you can find that it's a very simple system to create a new posting. So an employer would come in and they would create a new posting. They can cut and paste the general boilerplate from their job descriptions into the posting in this system. But what we do ask them to do is take a minute or two longer to define exactly what it is they're looking for, because by adding those criteria, we can actually do very targeted engagement of individuals that will meet their needs, experiential requirements, and academic and educational requirements in their posting. So I'm going to show you a position that's already been built, and this was a position. What happens is maybe they cut and pasted the description section in, and then they add so specific criteria and skills that they're really targeting. So in this case, they were looking for very specific computer and design drafting skills. And what it does is in these sections, it will actually build out the natural language in the posting as well. So you can see that this posting was asking for specific employment requirements and education requirements. The employer is able to add any kind of video, again, on this side, digital media, photos, videos of interns or co-op students that have worked with them before, talking to about what their experience was like, or hiring managers. We have some organizations that are in rural areas, for example, of Ontario, that are putting in what it's like to live in a specific area, and then reaching out to people that have personal interests aligned with maybe living in that area, like hiking or backpacking or camping, or interest in activities, outdoor activities, and they can actually use videos from their local area showing what it's like to live in that area, the culture of the town, the region, and so on, and then also find people with the experiences and the educational requirements that they require. So very powerful to take a lot of that information that can now be sitting on your website and actually push it to individuals that are a strong fit for your opportunities. And what we like to show is that employers, as they're actually filling out the posting, will receive information about how many qualified candidates are based on the criteria. So with this system, you can actually leave your posting. You'd say, my preference, for example, is to hire a student from University of Toronto. Maybe I'm a University of Toronto alum, or we've had success in recruiting from this program at University of Toronto, but I also need to hire somebody, so I'm setting it as a preference, not a mandatory requirement, and it will still show you people across the entire network. So depending on how you set your mandatory or required criteria, it will show you as you're adding those criteria exactly how many people, qualified candidates, it will be proactively reaching out to for you. So you can actually see what those candidates look like. So in comparison to the criteria, so in this position, for example, they were looking for a graduate since 2008. That was a preferred requirement. So you can see that this person does not have it. But so that probably means that they're a little bit more experienced. And you could go through each one. We won't for the sake of time. But generally, they would just look at this to say, yeah, that looks like the right group that I'm sending it out to. They can modify the posting because it provides this information in real time. And when they activate the posting, it goes out to those people, those qualified people. So we know that when you communicate, you're communicating to a group that is actually fitting the qualifications that you're looking for. So you're not getting overwhelmed by unqualified applicants. If you're from a large company and you're using an applicant tracking system, then we can actually still get targeted candidates into the top end of your applicant tracking system that you could further sort. So depending on whether you're using applicant tracking systems or not, and typically all large companies would be, but you may use either part of this process that I'm going to show you today, or you may use all of it. But we're able to either direct candidates, so you can acquire the candidates through this platform and then direct them to your ATS. And in the future, we're integrating into all of the different ATS suppliers as well, so they will be linked systems. For a small and medium-sized employer, this can actually provide a full-service platform for you to connect in the system, and that's what we'll kind of show from here on. So what would happen is the employer knows that there are 118 people that are qualified. They can send it out, so they activate it to those individuals. And then the individuals get it in the communication channel of choice, like we just talked about. They'll be able to apply on their smartphone or in any other form where they're receiving the communication. They'll be able to apply instantly. And when they apply, what happens is it comes through to, I'm just going to do a quick reset here. It comes through to the employer in a queue. So they're able to come into the system and see, for example, in this case, that 3 people have applied. Now, you can see one name, its name is Dan Palmer as a candidate. We can actually look at him. And we can see that we can look at how he matches up to the criteria that we had in the posting. We can actually see his profile and the different qualifications that he has in his online profile. We're able to see his resume and cover letter in traditional form. And we're able to see the job posting and review that if we want. If we want, we can actually share media with Dan Palmer, and we can communicate in the system. So there's a way to set up interviews and all kinds of functionality right in the system. But you'll notice that when we hit the results that Dan Palmer was the only name that was visible. So why is that? Well, he was visible because as an employer, I've connected to him. I've actually paid a small fee, and for small and medium-sized employers are lower volume, so you're not doing a lot of recruiting every year. All we charge for these proactive candidates are $9.99. So you'd be able to connect. And what's important to note is that you're able to review all of the information before even making that decision to connect. So let's go through how that works. So when a person first comes in, they're anonymous, but I can go in and see how they match up. And I can actually see their online resume, but you'll notice something different on this resume than Dan Palmer's. You'll notice that it's actually redacted. So we know that he was a mechanical engineer and we can see the information, but we can't see where he was a mechanical engineer. We see that he has a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical and Electromechanical Engineering, but it doesn't say what the institution was, and it doesn't have the name. And you can see it still says anonymous here. But I'm able to review all of the information, and I know that this person's a fit, and then I'm able to see all of the detail in the profile, and I can make a decision, yes, this is somebody that I would like to connect to. And that's the only time, and only if it's one of the proactive candidates that we've reached out to and engaged for you, would you ever have to pay this fee. If somebody has applied through the job board or any other system, they would be visible and you would be able to connect to them free of charge. So this is just for proactive candidates. And what we think is important on that is that there are a lot of there's a lot of great talent that may not be looking at a job board that we will still be connected to. So a lot of times it's somebody looking for the next step in their career. They're not necessarily looking right now, but this is a proactive engagement tool where we'll be able to engage them. At post-secondary institutions, we also have a challenge of students graduating and not always finding the position of their dreams right away. And so with this, we can actually keep them connected to opportunities that fit their skills or education and so on. So when the employer decides, after reviewing that resume, they decide they want to connect, then what happens, they just press connect. They pay that small connection fee. For larger employers, we're looking at obviously volume accounts, and we would be happy to discuss offline what that would look like. But an employer can come in, then, now that they've connected, this is the same resume that I'm showing you, the online resume, but now I can actually see where he was a mechanical engineer. I can actually see a video of, what that company was that he decided to put on here to show, what the company was. It was an international experience. He was an international professional, and this was, for example, his education record. So now we see that it was an engineering university in Iran. And so what we're actually finding, which we think is quite important, is that this is actually helping people connect and reducing bias in the early stage of candidate acquisition. And particularly, we're seeing it having an impact on connecting really highly skilled immigrant professionals to especially smaller and medium-sized companies that may not necessarily connect. A lot of times what we're finding, because it's difficult for small, medium-sized businesses to recruit oftentimes from post-secondary institutions, a lot of the recruiting is done one-to-one. It's with faculty members or through people's personal networks. Because it is difficult, they're really looking, they don't want to look through hundreds of resumes. They just want to find somebody that is a fit. And so a lot of times that leaves out people without the social capital, the connections, and the networks. And by making it easy for small and medium-sized employers in particular to come in and identify the talent and the people with the skills quickly, and then be able to connect in this way, we're finding is having a significant impact. So we're very excited about, and we'll be doing more research on, but that's one of the reasons we designed the system this way. So now that we've connected with Saeed, we can actually see his full resume and cover letter. We can do all the same things that we could do as well with Dan Palmer. If you're a community organization and you're using this side of the system as an intermediary, so you can have access to this technology to connect with your membership, communicate with your members. If you're using it in that way, you could also, for example, create instant online resume books. You can create, you could be using this to attract people for focus groups or sessions, or to engage your membership on specific initiatives. So it could be all kinds of things other than jobs. Unfortunately, with the time we have today, we won't be able to get into that. But this is the employer side, or very similar as well. It's basically the same side that you'd be using as a community manager and administrator. But what does that give us? So now, just again to remind, we've talked about the individual profiling. We've talked about the community engagement and employer side. We talked earlier about how this is supply and demand, and how we have the ability to track this information in aggregate. So what I'm going to show you now is what we call the Insight Dashboard. And this is available. This is the only part of the system that we actually charge for. And it is available to not-for-profit and community organizations in the province of Ontario. and colleges and universities and so on. And again, we feel that the revenue stream that we're creating with this system as well will help not only offset this, but potentially more than pay. Our goal is to try and create a sustainable initiative in the province. And this analytics tool we know is very valuable for community organizations and for regions. And we're trying to find ways to make it accessible to all of the community organizations that could benefit from it. So how can I use it? What you can see here at the top is it has the two sides, supply and demand. So if I wanted to understand the students, for example, the profile of the students at Ryerson, this is an aggregate, anonymized analytical tool that I can just get a sense of what is a pipeline for talent in our institution. We can go into any of the four areas that were expressed that we collected data from in the profiles, and we can do searches. So I could go in and look for people by location, by language, by employer names, so people that have worked at certain employers before. So I'll give you one example why that might be valuable. We know that in the financial service sector that oftentimes the banks, when they're hiring into corporate or head office, they know that students that have worked as a teller, so that work experience is actually more important in the hiring process than necessarily the degree. So they want a degree as a minimum entry point. But oftentimes, having somebody in certain roles that's been a teller in the past is the most important criteria. So right now, a lot of employers, the banks, may tend to focus more on the business school. And yet there might be a lot of people that have a degree and have that teller work experience that are in other programs. And we could actually look to see here who has worked as a teller, a customer service representative, and identify how many people we have across the institution, across different programs, that we could then connect the employer to do targeted information sessions and so on. So this that's only one example, one of many, many, many examples why this data is very useful and helps us connect our community in more effective and strategic ways. And each one of your community organizations would have specific things that you would be focused on that this would help connect you. So I'm just going to use an example. We're only going to go into the education section. I'm going to say I want to look at students that have an undergraduate degree that are focused in, for example, business, all focus areas, or engineering, all focus areas. So what I want to look at, I could look for professional designations amongst those students. I could look for people with skilled trades or other things, but I'm just going to look for first and second year undergraduate business students at Ryerson University. So you can see we picked here undergraduate degree, business all focus areas, engineering all focus areas, Ryerson University. I'm just going to say first and second year. So what I want to do then is just see how many students that will give us in to be analyzing, and you can see here it's 1,699 students have profiles that fit that that specific demographic. We can then go in and I can say, well, let me understand a little bit more about them. Let me know the locations that they come from, the different languages they speak, the companies that they've worked at in the past or present, so cumulative or just the current employers. We can do all of the other things, like, for example, employment location, the market served, the industry focus that they were in, the employer type. So if we wanted to see all of the students that have worked in business and engineering, but have also worked in a not-for-profit, we could do that as well. And we can go into education, and we can then, so we're picking again the plot data. So I can just say, I want to actually see what are the top 10 faculty focus areas that they have. And being first and second year students, it's not likely that they have a lot of professional designations, but we could do that if it was a different demographic. We can then come in and set a time frame that we can analyze over time. But for this case, I'm just going to hit display the frequency. And so now that we have the plot data in, we'll also have graphs, so we can actually see the locations that these students are from. So as you might expect, Mississauga, Markham, Brampton, and so on. The languages, so the second most spoken language is French amongst the students. Cantonese, Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi, Mandarin, and so on. I'd point out as well that we have export to CSV, so we can do further analysis. We're only showing in the graphs the top 10 plots, but we could go beyond that. And we can see here the different employers, that the top 10 employers of these students. And again, there's a long list of employers here. We're only showing the top 10. But you can start to see Ryerson University. These are probably work study students who are working on campus under one of the provincial funding programs to support jobs on campus. We have a lot of students that have worked at Canada's Wonderland, and so on. So you can imagine this is first and second year students. It changes quite dramatically. So you see TD starting to show up here. If we were to do all 4 years of undergrad, it would be significantly different. So you'd see a lot more employers kind of outside of the retail or services sector. And that becomes really, really interesting information. We can also see where they're focusing, their specialization areas, and so on. So this is the supply side, but we also have here, if I click it, we can go over the demand side. So one of the things we're always interested at the university and you know, across the post-secondary sector is making sure that we're producing students with the skills that are being requested by employers. If employers are putting new skills or new types of software systems or technology skills into their work or job descriptions that they're putting into the system, we're actually now using this automatically alerted to those. And so the intersection between what our students have as far as express skills and what employers are requesting is really an opportunity for us to make sure that our curriculum is aligned. And with this platform, we're able to actually get that type of insight and information in real time. So we're actually able to see it trending. We can see differences even across, so we can compare geographies, we can do all kinds of things. So when we all work together in the province of Ontario, and as this is growing to scale, it becomes really, really exciting. I'll give you one example. In the city of Mississauga, we have the University of Toronto, Mississauga. We have the Sheridan College as partners, and there are lots of other organizations in Mississauga, the Mississauga Board of Trade, and other groups. And by bringing all of these community groups together, we start to get a really interesting insight at the municipal level. So we can start to understand in that region or in the catchment area for the employers that are in that region, what's the supply? Is there any opportunity to start developing further training programs and so on in that region to support the employers? And we can do it in a real-time way. We're looking at also a lot of exciting things on the informing individuals, because we will be able to do things like what if analysis. What if a student finished their MBA and went on and got a CFA designation? How will that impact their career? Because we have both sides, both the supply and the demand side in the system. So we're really excited about where this is going, already getting a tremendous amount of valuable information out of the system. One thing I would mention really quickly is that in the profiles in the new year, we will have the ability for individuals to self-identify across all of the groups that people would self-identify on. So Aboriginal, visible minorities, LGBTQ, and so on, will be able to self-identify in the system. And the way it's structured is that employers doing diversity hiring and recruiting will be able to identify talent that meet those requirements and connect to them more effectively. We're working with a lot of groups with youth with disabilities and people's community groups supporting people with disabilities and connecting them to employers across our province. And by doing it together like this, we're actually able to leverage a lot of the funding opportunities and so on that are available to create these connections. So we're very excited about being able to make a difference in the province of Ontario. To truly do this, we need partners. And so we're really happy that you're on the line today to learn more about this. We hope that we can help support you. We have all kinds of other groups. We're open to collaborating with any initiative. And I think it's really exciting to see a lot of initiatives trying to help youth and new immigrants around the province. And I think by all of us working together that we'll be able to really make a difference. So I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. There's a lot more that we could talk about in the system, and a lot more. Um, there's a lot more information and functionality that's coming out in the new year that we're quite excited about. But again, happy to take any of your questions right now. Again, due to the echo and the background noise, I think probably the best thing is to ask you to place your questions in the chat box, and I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions that you may have. So the first question we have is from MBOT. Is there any booklet? We actually have taken the route of doing training videos instead. So we will be providing new training videos as well to Rosa at Advantage Mississauga. So I'm not sure who is on from Advantage Mississauga, but we will have a whole package that will go through this information. And again, depending on the area that you're using primarily, we'd be targeting specific videos to support your organization. And we also have staff in Mississauga that are able to answer questions at any time as well, specifically targeted on helping in the Mississauga area. And we're very excited to be working with MBOT. So again, if there are any other questions, we'd be happy to take any questions. I know it's Friday before before the holidays. Hopefully, everybody has a few days off next week, not just Christmas. So we are conscious of your time as well. But happy to take any questions, and I can stay a little bit after 10 for anybody that may have more questions. If there are no questions after the webinar, then we're happy to connect with you one-on-one. You can reach out to us through our website, our contact form, and we're happy to get in touch with you right away. And I'll actually put my email address as well into the chat box here. And if anybody wants to reach out to me directly, please feel free. So, Aaron, are you thinking of extending across Canada or say across the border to the U.S.? We've actually we are expanding already outside of Ontario. This started in Ontario, and we are focused on Ontario primarily right now. But we already have colleges and universities that are coming on board in Nova Scotia, in BC, in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, Manitoba. And other provinces as well. So it is definitely expanding across Canada, and we have had a lot of expressed interest as well from the US. So if you have a particular idea in mind, Aaron, we'd be happy to talk to you further. I think in the really short term, we are going to be focused on Ontario and Canada, but certainly are open to looking at expansion outside of that as well. So again, I just put my email address in the chat box, and very happy if anybody has any specific questions they want to take offline and ask me. Happy to answer those. And Susie Mangar is on the line as well, and I think a lot of you probably have already connected to her, so she is certainly available as well to support you if you want to, as a community organization or a not-for-profit partner, get involved in signing up through our website. And also, again, as an employer, we're happy to discuss with you. If you're a larger employer and you want to set up a corporate account, you can certainly sign up and get started, and then we can discuss with you the how that would work for volume connections, but we're happy to do that. So again, thank you very much, Gordon. And not sure what organization you're from. We'll look it up after, but really look forward to connecting to you in the new year. And have a great holiday season. And thanks again for your interest and time today. So again, thank you very much. I hear some people signing off now. I'm happy to stay on for a few more minutes and take any questions that people may have. But if there are no more questions, we will start to wrap up. Like I said, please, if you have any questions, let us know, and we're also happy to connect off of the webinar as well. So thank you very much again for being on the line today. And we wish you all a happy holiday season, and look forward to speaking with you, if not before the holidays, and certainly in the new year. I'll be here for a few more minutes if anybody has a question. Again, so thank you very much. Doesn't look like there are any other questions. Really appreciate your time today. Have a great weekend and great holiday season. Take care.